Didn't go live.
Hello, everyone. Let's share my screen. Jack, you want to kick us off?
Yes. Sharing screen now. When you say kick us off, do you want me to introduce you?
No,
This is Jared.
no need to introduce me, but need to say welcome. I can introduce us. Welcome to Slater Live. Today we are going to talk about Slater instead of JavaScript. So I'm just going to run through kind of how I use the tool, and hopefully that helps everyone who is not yet in Slater or getting into Slater, or even a multi-month user. Maybe there's a couple tricks that you aren't using yourselves. So I've bucketed it into kind of 4 big value propositions. So the first one is the community. The second one is improved workflow. Third one is how you become a developer. And then fourth is collaboration. There's probably a couple other minor ones, but I think those are big buckets that make Slater special. So first off, with the community, we have this new website that Jack so lovingly worked on. Lots of good stuff here, and it's only going to get better. So we have a blog. This blog is going to capture a lot of the different events that we're hosting. So there's this office hours, but there's also community spotlights, which are even better than this office hours. So those events are here. So if you ever need to know what's coming up, come here, come to our Slack channel. So yeah, kind of the next piece of the community is we have the Slack channel. You can go there to figure out what's going on with Slater, get help with your JavaScript, chat with other Webflow JavaScript developers, and much, much more, right? The last thing I'll say is there's also a newsletter. So if you're not yet receiving emails from us, that will just keep you up to date on what's happening within Slater. So that's kind of all the stuff that we have today in community, but there is also an announcement that there's going to be a lot more education coming pretty soon. So we have one of our favorite Edgar Allan developers, Wit, who will be doing JavaScript sessions. So if you've been in the community for a while, Wit was doing some cool videos that you can find on YouTube, and he'll be doing a lot more of those. So excited for that. Wit's awesome. He's kind of the Slater spirit animal, and he does really smooth, nice videos. So looking forward to that. He's rolling off one of our big clients this month, and we're going to make him available for Slater, which I'm excited for. Jack, anything else you would bring up with the community? Anything you want to say on that? But Jack's doing a great job of kind of fostering the community. Of course, there's Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us at Slater_app.
Hey, sorry, my little mute button wasn't unmuting. Yeah, I think you summarized that really well, Jared. Plenty more content coming in terms of articles. We are also creating a course as well, like a specific JS for Webflow beginners course, which I'm currently working with. I'm not going to say who it is, actually, just in case I'm not meant to, but I'm very, very excited for that. A Webflower in the community who's making that. And there is a competition coming as well. In fact, if I turn my laptop around,
That's true.
I'm literally recording the video. I'm not recording the video right now, but I'm recording the video today for that. So I'm very, very excited for that to come. And I would also say that loads of people are now building client projects, doing clonables and things like that. So the barrier to entry for doing JS in Webflow is getting lower and lower, in my opinion, as more and more people share clonables, share resources, and this is only going to grow in momentum. So if you're like, oh, I don't really know about JS and like, this is a really good time to just get in, get your hands dirty, and start, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I was going to say one other thing. We just launched our new website, but it's going to be replaced with an even cooler website in a couple weeks, if that. So Mason has been working on a really cool brand update for Slater. So we'll be excited to show you more there soon. With that, I think that kind of covers the community. So it's already great. It's going to get a lot better. And so next, let's talk about the improved workflow with Slater. So let's log in. And I'll use my Edgar Allan account. Okay. So here I am on my personal projects team, but let's stay here for now. So when I create a project, I have two options. I can just create a simple project, or I can add a Webflow URL, and then it becomes a single script project. So for this one, I'm just going to call this project 1, or let's do simple number 1. I'll give it a color, and I'll create that project. So let's just say page 1. With this, I now have a JavaScript file that is available to use wherever I need it to. So if I click open this, I get the script, and I can take this and put it in one of two places. The first is I can put it in this page, this single home settings page. So if I want my JavaScript to only run on a single page, this is the place to put it. It's going to be in the footer of the custom code. If I want it to run on every page, so let's say it's something for handling the nav, then I can come over to the site settings, and I can add it here in this footer code. And the nice thing about this simple JavaScript file is it's just going to be this single file that's available. So in theory, if I created a new page, then that new page, I could just grab this again, and I could have multiple pages here in theory if I wanted to. Perhaps this first one covers the navigation. Perhaps the second one covers something in the footer. I don't know. But it gives you a lot of customizability to where you want your files to go. One other thing to say about this is there is a dev and prod script. So when I copy this, you'll notice that this minified version, it's saying, if you are on this webflow.io domain, then run this Slater app JavaScript. This particular file is very quick. So when I save it, I can refresh immediately, and I get that updated file. So this is great for your staging development. But if you have a file that's in production and you want to make sure that it's really resilient, so even if our Slater app goes down, you want that file to be served up still, then we have this S3 URL. And so that file is going to be extremely resilient. So it can probably be taken offline, but it would have to be like a major Amazon outage for that to go offline. So you can have a lot of confidence that your JavaScript is going to be served up from this production URL or production JavaScript file. And so to do that, you're just going to be coming here. So what I do is I'll write some code, and I just have Command S is my shortcut. So you can see that here. You can also click this to save it. You can click this and then click this to save it. And you'll notice right now that's not saved to prod. And so this file is available from the staging domain, but not from the production domain. If you want it to be saved to the production domain, then you click this. You'll notice it's a little bit slower because it's actually writing a file and putting it on S3. And so that's the reason why we don't just have a single, that single file. That is because you want to be able to move really quick with the staging JavaScript file, but you also want a very resilient file for your production. So you'll notice dev and prod are now in sync. And so I'm good to go. As I make updates here, you'll notice it's now out of sync. And so you can know, like I just saved my dev file, my production file was saved 36 seconds ago. This could be 2 weeks ago, whatever it is. And so now I'm able to make sure that my code is working well within the webflow.io domain. And when it's ready to go, I can save it to production. And then it's going to be kind of resilient and available for our users. Cool. So that's the simple project. Let's pop back out and let's create a single script project.
Jared, can I just quickly ask you something that was asked to me and I didn't know how to answer it? One thing that Alan Tobin said on our Spotlight session was about the security of the code. And he was talking about how his clients were really, really keen on using Slater because of the security of it in comparison to other tools. Like you could own the code and have it in your workspace. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because you just talked about security there, and I think this is quite an important point for people to, if they're working with clients, to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know that security is the right frame for this JavaScript because this is the open web. And so if I go, let's say, to this here, you can always inspect the code and then you can open up, so Slater, like you can open up that JavaScript file and do whatever you want with it. So the web is by design in this way not secure. Like I can copy this entire page and that pulls down all my assets, it pulls down all my HTML, CSS, and all my JavaScript. So we are putting your JavaScript file in a place where anybody who wants to run that JavaScript file from a web page can. So I'm not sure in this case, like thinking about security is quite the right frame. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think maybe he was talking about like owning the code, i.e. having the code hosted on a private Slater account rather than someone, because like you say, you could just inspect the code and then copy that. But
yeah, and I'm going to talk about collaboration because I think that's where this matters more. If you have more than 10,000 characters that you're trying to save to your Webflow project, that's not going to work. So you're going to have to host it somewhere else. And then it gets really tricky to say, like, who owns this file? How do I update it? So there's a lot of problems around hosting external code if you're not doing it through Slater. So we'll dig into that a little bit more as we talk about collaboration. But I think that's where owning the file like really matters. And yeah, when we talk about security, the right frame is who can update that file. And so Slater certainly helps with that, because the only way you can get that file updated is if someone is in your Slater account as a team member and they're making those updates. And we've got a bunch of security features around that. So we'll talk about that.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks.
So let's talk about the single script a little bit more. So here's my single script project. I've created a page. Now, when I copy this, I can add it to my project. Looks like I got kicked out of my Webflow. my Webflow username login that is a shared shared team one that we use. Anyway, but this one is going to act a little bit different than the other one. So if I look at this, I have not saved it to production yet. Let me use the other one. Okay, so coming back here, I'm going to say console.log page 1. And, oh, of course, I did not add, maybe edit this project. So I need to come up with a, so I can just grab the URL. It could be any of these. And we pull out the relevant part that we need. So I'm going to update this project. And now when I pop in here, I'm going to delete this page. So now all of the pages that are available on this particular project are now shown here. So if I want it to be global, I'll just leave the title. So now when I write code, this is going to show up on every single page. When I create a new file and I do, let's say, index, this is the home page. So I'm fighting with someone over at the login. Let's try, I know someone's on, I tend to use the Edgar Allan team accounts. So sometimes I have to fight over it. And I know someone's on home, so, or hello. I'm gonna kick Habs out. Hopefully he's not too busy on this. So let's grab this single script. And I'm gonna pop over here to site settings. If you have the single script, the place you want to put it is in this custom code footer. So I'm gonna save that, publish it before I get kicked back out. Cool. Okay, so you'll notice this says global. I think this is our file. And so if I click on blog, again, that global console is getting logged. If I go back to the home page, this is the home page, it's getting logged. And this is just this is me writing an error. So this isn't a real error. This is just me playing around with console error, which is something I've never really written until the other day. So if you want to air something out, if you're into a chunk of your code that is not supposed to be running, then you can log an error as opposed to a console. That's a nice little convention. And so anyway, now I've got my single script in there, and I can come back and just keep adding pages. And I don't need to go back into Webflow and save it anymore. So let's say I want to go on pricing and create this page, and console.log pricing. You'll notice that I can just go here, and here I have my pricing console log. So global's running on every page, pricing's running on the pricing page. Events, we're just going to get to global. So it's kind of nice because like once you put that single script in, you don't really ever have to go back to Webflow, and you can just keep adding different pages. The other thing you can do is add external scripts. So this works for single script, but it also works for the simple one. So if I want to, I don't know, add what? Let's do jQuery UI. Hop over here. And I'll just grab this one. So now this is going to be saved and available. So that jQuery UI is now running on this. Well, it's probably running on the pricing page, since that's where I've added the external script. So yeah, it's really nice to use a single script because you add it once to Webflow and then you just are able to write JavaScript as much as you want on any page. The only kind of problem you have is if you do write some JavaScript that breaks on a different page, it can impact multiple pages. So what we do here with a single script is we concatenate all of it into a single file and run the correct JavaScript for that page. And so this is kind of advanced mode. It's a better workflow, but it also requires you to be thoughtful about how you're writing your JavaScript. The last thing I'll talk about workflow is the snapshots. This is kind of a brand new feature. Super useful when you're writing difficult JavaScript. So let's say I want to take a snapshot here. I can now view the snapshot and it's just got this pricing. So let's, and working on something really difficult. I've gone down a path and I'm like, oh shoot, it's not gonna work. So I can now go back to my snapshot and I can restore that code. And so now I've got that updated snapshot that's available. So this is, developers use GitHub, but GitHub is a challenge to work with from an application and also for newer developers to kind of understand what's going on. And so this is more the no-code way of handling kind of some GitHub type functionality. And so we do support GitHub. I've turned that off to only beta users right now because there are some edge cases that cause issues. But for the regular Webflow developer, this snapshot functionality is super useful. And it's something I've already started using a lot in my projects. So when you're writing difficult JavaScript, you are going to be going down paths and you're not sure if that's the right path. And there's several cases where you just need to know, okay, this is a good, at this state, I know that my JavaScript's correct. And so if I start writing some JavaScript that I have not yet kind of finalized, and I find that that JavaScript's a problem, I can always come back to a snapshot. So those are the big pieces around improved workflow. Any questions or comments on that piece? Cool. If not, then let's talk about how I become a developer or a better developer. And this is where AI comes in and is extremely powerful. So here we have the Learn panel. And as a developer, I use something called, in my VS Code, it's called Copilot. And Copilot kind of, it's like an autocomplete for your code. And it can be useful at times, but I think this chat interface is really the best way to interact with AI. So I can write something like, do I write fetch request? And it's going to start writing that for me. And now I can just copy this, or I can just highlight this and just drag it on. And so that workflow around AI is extremely useful and just quick. So you'll notice it only gave me actual code. And the reason it did that is because I'm using this show code only. So if you're a more experienced developer, you don't necessarily want all of the additional information that the AI will give you. And so let's turn that off and let's write that same prompt. So again, it's going to give me the code, but it's going to also give me information about the code and what it's doing. And so if you're a new JavaScript developer, this is super helpful in explaining like what the code is doing and giving you the information you need so that you can understand it, debug it, whatever else. So this is like a really good explanation of like what this code is doing. So I think this is our default mode, is just show is to have the explanation as part of the response. But if you're just trying to go quickly, just having the code is also nice. The other new thing we have is this toggle. So 3.5 is the default. 3.5 is quick. It's I think it's what they use to do Codex, which is their like the OpenAI's code writing model. And so 3.5 is really great. Some people like GPT-4 though. And so you can now toggle this on if you want to. If you're not liking the response for one or the other, toggling it back and forth may be useful. So lastly, there's the system prompt. This is only available to beta users. You'll notice I have beta access or beta functionality on this account. If you are interested in having access to like additional testing functionality that may or may not work, let me know and we can turn on beta functionality for you. You'll have kind of early access to some stuff, which may be interesting to you. This system prompt, probably next week, we're going to have Mason talk about where he sees Slater going. So I built Slater, and it's very much the context of a developer. Like this is very similar to my regular coding environment. So I use VS Code. Let's see, quickly open that. Yeah, so like this is Slater, the actual code. It's a Ruby on Rails app, but you'll notice like it's very similar to. It's very comfortable for me as a developer to have this kind of set up. For no-code developers, for designers, people in the no-code space, this may be a little bit overwhelming. So we are thinking about like what are the next views so that this is more accessible to everyone. Like one day there may be just like a notebook version where you just write prompts and the AI works with you to write the code that you need. So that's kind of where this comes into play. This is allowing us to test different prompts because you have to be very clever about how you talk to the AI, especially if you want it to just be able to write the code in a way that it works without having to update anything. And so that's something we're going to be playing around with. We'd love to get your feedback. So next week we'll have Mason kind of talk about his vision for those additional views. So there's probably going to be this developer mode. There's going to be a no-code mode, a notebook mode, and that should be kind of interesting to a lot of you, I expect. So that is the learn. I guess these other two things, this is nice. And some of our community members have talked about using explain code and debug code to solve different problems. So again, the AI is extremely good about understanding code and explaining how the code works. And so this explain code button, you just highlight what you want to have explained, and it will go through there and it will write a very detailed explanation. The other thing is, let's see, let's forget this. And let's have the debug code. Let's see if we can spot this. Again, it's incredibly good at debugging as well. So look, it identified that comma was missing. And so when we're talking about those other views, this is going to be important. So it's going to be able to write code, and then it's going to be able to debug its own code. And but yeah, it's saying, oh, look, you forgot a comma. So add the comma right here. So I could even just take this, drag it on, and now it's fixed. So when we first started building Slater, that's kind of right when GPT 3.5 was being released. And so it was never part of the vision initially, but quickly made sense. And I can say, like, this is helping me a lot. It's helping the Edgar Allan developers a lot. I'm getting called in to help with JavaScript a lot less. But at the same time, like, it's just so much easier to write code. So, like, for example, writing validations for a form is super tedious. It's like one of the least favorite things for me to do. But with the AI, like, I can have it done just like within an hour. It's really quite incredible. Anything you guys want to bring up or questions about the AI?
Jared, can I just recap? Because I feel like we're flying through this stuff, and I just want to make sure that everyone's getting these updates. So there's the text wrap. So that's like a CSS change. So which is super powerful. There's the screenshotting, which would really help people who are maybe a little bit more advanced. Like I see JP in the chat. He's obviously quite an experienced coder. So if you're writing complicated code and you want to screenshot it before you make changes, then that's a super helpful change that's been added. And then you've also talked about highlighting the code, clicking explain code, or clicking debug code. And you can turn that on and off by using the little toggle in the top right. So if you don't want the explainer, you can just toggle it off after hitting that little icon in the top right.
Yep.
But I just feel like there's so many product changes that happen week in, week out, and people might be like, whoa, what's going on? And yeah, just how do I use it? So if anyone's got any questions about any of those things or anything else that Jared's talked about so far, feel free to put something in the comment, and I can put it up on the screen, and we can have a look together. But Jared, cracking job. Continue.
Yeah. One other thing I should talk about is the way you prompt the AI. So you can start talking to it, and you may find that the AI is going down a path that you don't want. What you can do then is you should clear the chat out, because that chat is a continuing conversation with the AI. And so it's going to be thinking about your prior chat logs as you continue. So if you're going down a path you don't like, you do want to clear it out so that you can start it over again. So that's the clear chat button. If you do find that you need any of that, though, it is available in the chat archive, and you can restore the different pieces of that chat if it's useful to you. You can also copy this code. We don't have this quite yet, but pretty soon we'll be allowing you to share your chat history. So maybe there's like a really good prompt that's useful. We'll give you a public URL that you can send to someone on your team or someone in the community. And then we'll talk more about this in a bit as well. There's going to be a community library. So just useful pieces of JavaScript you'll be able to save and share with everybody. And we'll have an open library where people pop in to find the JavaScript they need to solve a particular problem, and then just import it into their code. So
super exciting changes to come. Marina's asked, is there any example of what bugs we can face when using single script?
Yeah, I think the most common one is if you write so var test equals document dot get element by ID, and you say test, and then you say test dot add event listener, whatever it is, listener, I think that's correct. Let's say this is a click function console log So this ID is not on the page. And so writing this event listener on something that doesn't exist doesn't work. And so if we come over here, let's see, this is the pricing page. You'll notice it's throwing this error. This can potentially break, like stop the JavaScript from running. And so anything happening after this break may not run. And so that's where like you need to be aware, okay, this isn't on the page. Like let's put this in the global script. And now we're breaking it kind of on every page. And so that will, it will stop JavaScript working from anything after this error happens. So one way you could solve this is you could just use this test whether it exists before adding that event listener. So in this particular case, that solves that. So yeah, the big thing is like anytime you see a red error, you want to solve that problem so that it's not breaking any other JavaScript in your single script file.
Jared, am I right in thinking, so when you see an error, it means that the rest of the script doesn't run? Is that right?
Yeah. So
great.
It will like, it's not totally true depending on kind of, there's caveats, but generally if you're seeing red, then something's not working in your JavaScript and it can be impacting other parts of your JavaScript. So
see red, knock it on the head.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions or anything while we are in question mode? Seems quiet on the front. Cool. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions, write it in the chat and I can put it on the screen for us to explore.
Cool. So just a little bit more on how you can become a better developer with Slater. We do have the library. And so it's very common for me to write a fetch post. And I cannot write this by hand. Like I have to have either the AI write it for me, or I have to have like the code complete do it. So saving that will just give me the copy and paste, and I can add this and then customize it to my particular problem that I'm solving. And so having this boilerplate available to you, I think really good developers, they save their solutions in some place. Unfortunately, I've never been good at that. Like there's like projects that I'll go back to grab a piece of code that I know works. But it would be great to have a single place where I'm saving all of my code. And so this is what this library is. And it's super useful to just always have those solutions available to you. And so this is a bigger one. This is how to get started with Slick Slider. So you're going to have your own personal library that you can save the code that you're using consistently over and over again. We're also going to have that community library, which will allow you to pull in solutions that you can then have in your personal library and come back to those again and again. So this will be extremely useful for just getting familiar with solutions that you're using over and over again, and just make you much quicker in how you're solving code problems. One other thing I didn't bring up with the improved workflow that is also related to being a better developer is we will be launching pretty quickly. This is in my local, so this is my development environment, so it's not quite up yet, but you sign in. We now have a CSS file, so you can write all your JavaScript in a single place, but also any custom CSS that you need to add. You'll be able to do the same here. So you'll have your CSS file that will give you a script that you can add to your project, probably in the page footer or page header. So this came back to us from team members, but then also from the community. So we finally got this built out, and probably expect it to be launched late this week, but probably next week is when we'll actually push this out. Thanks, Bruno, for lighting the fire. Cheers. Cool. So next, let's talk about collaboration. So collaboration was a big reason that we built Slater. So I was using Code Sandbox, and it was a pretty good solution, but there were a lot of problems in workflow, because you would write all your JavaScript and then you'd have to like push it over to Webflow. If something broke, you'd have to like go back and forth. I was never certain how long my JavaScript files would be on Code Sandbox and whether they would go down for any reason. And so there were a few issues that I had with Code Sandbox. The other one was like, there were a lot of times where I had to hop on with a team member to solve some JavaScript problem. And so I would have to like look at the code within Webflow, try to help them debug it. And they'd have to go through like, okay, we made an update, go to publish it, wait for it to be published, go check it out. Oh, that didn't quite solve it. And then there'd be this back and forth, and it would just be really slow. If we weren't solving it quickly, then I'd have to say, okay, send me the code. I'd have to go add it to Code Sandbox, and then we would be able to work quickly on it. But then I'd have to send the code back, and they'd have to install it. And then like the client comes back with one more request, and so it just got really ugly. So now we have all of our code. So let's hop in here. So my personal, but if I hop into the Edgar Allan one, you'll notice we just have a ton of JavaScript here. And this is all of our projects. If there's any question as to a particular project that needs to be updated, we know where it's at. We have roles around this. So you'll notice a bunch of these I didn't create, and so I don't necessarily have access to them. Let's say this one. I have access to these ones. You'll notice this is just for me. I have God mode, so I can turn this on. But that's generally the case, is like whoever created the file owns the file, and then they can either give access to the entire project to anyone on that team, or to a particular page within that project. So if I am just one of the Edgar Allan users, like I may want to know what's going on with this code. Like maybe we've done some interesting thing for this island IO that we want to move somewhere else. I can come in here and I can copy the JavaScript, but I don't have access to changing anything. So I can't accidentally go in there and fat finger something and change the code and save it. Like I only have access to view the code, and so that I can use that code potentially on another project. But if I need access to it, I can ask whoever owns that file to give me access to it, and then I can make updates. So yeah, having all of our JavaScript in a single place and allowing people to get access to that it really helps us as a team, because there are a number of times where people working on the project, maybe one person rolls off of it and someone else comes on it. There's a single place to go. It's not someone saved it up in Code Sandbox and then nobody can access it. So getting back to that security, this is giving the right people the right access to the files. Yeah, and then we have like the roles on both the project and the page. And so that just gives it a lot of granularity into what's accessible. And of course, if someone's joining the team, we can invite them to the team, and this sends out an invitation. They're then added to the the team and have access to all of that code. So it's like a ton of institutional knowledge that just gets captured in a single place, which is really powerful for us as a team. The other really cool thing is let's open. So this particular user I'm on is my Jared Edgar Allen. I'm gonna open up. Let's do JFowls, my other account. And let's go to Slater.js because I'm not on the Edgar Allen for this one. So I can hop on a call with a team member. Let's say this timing issues. And you'll notice as I'm writing code here, it's getting updated here. And so now we can be working together and watching those updates. And maybe I have something to add, so I can say, whatever it is. So I here, and then I don't have access to update this one. But anyway, if we're both working, we can be seeing those live updates happen and making sure that we're on the same page. So this has been extremely useful for a number of paired programming sessions we've done together.
It's like Slater Inception.
Exactly. It's still kind of magical to me that I can be working with someone across the world and I save it and just like instantly that update's available for that person on the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's wild. And how many people can be in a project at the same time then?
I don't think there's a limit. Yeah.
Slater.
There probably is a limit, but it's probably a very large limit. So not something we're going to be running into within Slater. So
I mean, not that you'd want like 10 people simultaneously editing code. That would be really annoying. But yeah. I was intrigued.
Exactly.
Sorry, carry on.
So I want to share one additional update that will be released soon. We have this ability to transfer. So there's a lot of times where we have a client, we finish up the project, we now need to transfer everything over to them. That JavaScript file may not get transferred over. And so then there's that question of like, who owns it? And getting back to the security, like who can update it? So with this transfer project, let's say new client team and client@test.com. This is going to send an email out to that person. They're able to accept that and take over that project. So if we come back here, we're now in the client team project. So if we hop into the client team, this person now owns that code. And I am also a user on that. So now they own the code, but since I'm likely the one who's going to be updating that code, I still have access to it and can make the updates that I need to. And it gives them security, it gives them ownership, but also makes my job easy to make updates as needed. You'll notice I've been playing around with this a lot, so I've got a lot of teams. But I can always hop back into whatever other team and continue my next project or whatever else. So,
can I ask a question about that, Jared? So, I guess there's a few people watching that might be freelancers that are like, "Ooh, this feature is really exciting because obviously I can transfer the code at the end of the project over, but I can still access it if I'm on a retainer with my client or whatever. You know, I can do that." But I guess, as everyone here is aware, Slater will be a paid product soon. And so the cost of that is also being transferred, if I understand correctly, from the Webflower to their client. Is that right?
That is correct, yes. And Jack can speak to this better than I can, but we're going to figure out all sorts of incentives to make it so that you are provided with some benefit for adding your client as a user within Slater.
Yeah, I knew the answer there, Jared, but I just wanted to tee you up to just confirm with any freelancers that are watching, you will be able to transfer the cost of hosting that code over to your client, which is a really, really important point. But also, like Jared just mentioned, we are going to be doing some kind of points-based scheme where, if you create content on behalf of Slater, if you make a clonable, or if you make a video explaining how you've used Slater in one of your projects, etc., there will be points-based scheme where essentially you can get the price of Slater free for a few months. Or I'm working on some Slater merch as well. You guys love the merch, but we need some Slater exclusive merch, and all sorts of other things that you can use the points. You can redeem those points to have all sorts of perks and benefits. So as JP mentions, cool new updates every week. Yes, sir. Hopefully those are going to continue, and as long as you guys keep giving us feedback, by the way, and keep helping us to ensure that the product is as good as it can be for you guys, that's why these updates are happening as much as they are, because people are giving us feedback. So thank you so much for doing that and helping helping us build Slater together.
Yeah, let me jump back in. You can probably hear my daughter screaming in the background, but I think that kind of covers everything. The one other big soon-to-come update that I'm not supposed to talk about a lot is the Webflow app. So all of this functionality is going to be living within Webflow with our new app marketplace. And so that should be launching in the next month or two as Webflow pushes that out, I think around the Webflow conf. So that will, just allow you to have this developer experience in your own tab, or also open it up in Webflow and make updates there. So that should be pretty cool. We're also going to be using the Webflow OAuth, so you'll be able to sign in with your Webflow account. Lots of cool stuff around that.
Wow. So many updates this. I think this office hours is probably the most intense office hours we've had, where it's just like this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. So if anyone has any questions in the last few minutes, don't blame you. There's a lot to take in there.
And I think kind of the takeaway, if you don't have access to Slater, let us know, we'll give you access. If you want to be a beta user, let me know, and I can give you additional access to testing functionality. Expect, like, we'll be rolling out a new website soon. We'll be officially launching pretty soon, and we'll be doing some stuff around the Webflow conf, which should be pretty cool.
Yeah. Seatbelts on. This is going to be intense. So if anyone has any questions in the final few minutes, ask away. But also, if Jared just spoke about getting access to Slater, but also make sure that you're in the Slack as well. A lot of people are asking questions, sharing things in there that are really helpful. And we put most of that stuff on Twitter, to be fair. But if you want to ask questions about specific issues or product updates or whatever, that's the place to do it. JP asks, is it too early to ask if there will be a free option with the dev script only and it's paid with production scripts?
There will certainly be a free tier. We haven't totally finalized that. We definitely have our ideas around it. But yeah, there will be access to some number of projects, and So the playground will definitely be available as part of that.
Yeah. And shout out to Andrea Morgan for coming up with that name, the playground. Love it. Any other questions about roadmap, pricing? We might not be able to give you anything 100% concrete, but yeah. And also, just to say as well, while you're probably thinking of questions, if you guys have specific problems with projects, if you're trying to use Slater for a specific Webflow project, we love trying to deal with that stuff live on these office hour calls as well. So last week we had Matt. I've forgotten his surname, but anyway, he came with a specific problem, and it was dealt with on the call, which was really awesome. So feel free to message on Twitter or in the Slack, and maybe we can deal with that live. Lemmy's got another call to jump on. Thanks for the session, Lemmy. All right. It doesn't seem like there's anyone with any specific questions. Jared, do you want to add anything else?
No. Good seeing everyone, and we'll keep letting you know about the updates coming.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.